Chris Scalzo here with
Matt, the lyrical assassin.
And this week on the first run, Matt and I checked out Ant-Man. Phase 2 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe comes to a close. Is it a triumphant finish, or we were actually hoping more, even for another Thor movie instead? I don't like the Thor movies. We'll tell you what's coming up on Blu-ray and DVD this week, which is really nothing. And then we're going to tell you what 5 comic book characters do not, I repeat, do not need a cinematic version. No movie for you. So we'll get into all that, but first, Ant-Man.
Imagine a soldier the size of an insect. The ultimate secret weapon.
If you give godlike powers to everyone, it's going to be chaos.
So how do we stop him?
I know a guy. Scott, I've been watching you for a while. You're different. And I believe everyone deserves a shot at redemption. Do you?
Absolutely. My days of breaking into places and stealing stuff are over. What do you want me to do?
I want you to break into a place and steal some stuff.
Makes sense.
Are you ready to become a hero?
Now, the suit has power. You have to learn how to control it. And these are your greatest allies.
You're kind of cute. Whoa.
When you're small, you have superhuman strength. You're like a bullet. So you need to know how to punch.
You want to show me how to punch? Show me how to punch.
That's how you punch.
So, Matt, this film started out with Edgar Wright helming the picture, right? Written and directed by Edgar Wright, one of our favorite directors. He was Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, The World, and Scott Pilgrim, right? We're a big fan of all those films. And Edgar Wright had been talking about making an Ant-Man movie for what, like 10 years, right? It was some long amount. So he wrote the whole thing up. He's ready to go. And then Marvel shifts. Then they start this whole plan where they're going to do this whole cinematic universe. And Wright bows out because they want him to tie things too much into the whole greater plan, much more than what he wanted to do. So then they bring in a new director, Peyton something or other. You think I'd be more prepared? Peyton Reed. And working then Paul Rudd and Adam McKay from Will Ferrell, Anchorman fame, come together to kind of rework the script to come more in line with what they want to do. Maybe punch it up a little bit, make it even funnier. I'm not sure. So what's interesting too is we're working with Scott Lang Ant-Man. If you're not familiar, Scott Lang is the second Ant-Man, who is a cat burglar, a thief, who kind of redeems himself and becomes a hero. Hank Pym is the original Ant-Man, and maybe we'll get into that and where he fits into all this. So Paul Rudd, Scott Lang Ant-Man, is recruited to basically stop this company from developing this super suit, the Yellow Jacket suit, which for me is one of my absolute favorite costume designs of the year, the Yellow Jacket suit. And then because it could be used for some nefarious purposes, perhaps even being sold to Hydra for some reason or another. I'm not sure. I guess Hydra has something small to do with the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So Ant-Man is brought up and developed and but recruited to stop this from happening, to destroy all the data and get the one copy of the Yellow Jacket suit so Hydra doesn't get their hands on it. And all the awesome stuff that happens from there. So, Matt, Marvel Phase 2, right? We've firmly established what Marvel Phase 2 is, and we'll review that quickly with our listeners. You have Iron Man 3. You have Thor: The Dark World, Captain America: Winter Soldier, Guardians of the Galaxy, Avengers: Age of Ultron, and Ant-Man. I'm going to tell you right now, this year, 2015, I think Ant-Man is the best film Marvel put out. What do you think?
I definitely agree with that. I think it's definitely better than Age of Ultron, and I would say it's probably easily in the top 3 of the Marvel Phase 2 movies. I would say after Guardians of the Galaxy and The Winter Soldier, I definitely think this is better than any of the other ones that they've released in Phase 2.
That's exactly where I would place it as well, as number 3. I think Ant-Man maybe it's not as funny as the film thinks it is at times, but I think it's funny enough. And my favorite thing about this film is not only the fact that I think it's perfectly cast, but I love the smaller scope of the film. We've had world blowing up, universe saving films all along now. And I like the fact that this was a smaller film, that there wasn't quite so epic, if you will. You know, I really appreciated that. I loved Michael Douglas's turn as, and we'll just say he's Hank Pym in the film. It's not like it's a big secret. And they actually work in Hank Pym and the Wasp. And I think really interestingly, because part of me going into this is I thought, before knowing initially that Hank Pym was in the movie, I knew they were going straight with Scott Lang. I said, well, so we're just going to jettison all the original Ant-Man stuff, Janet Van Dyne, the Wasp. We're just not going to bother that. But no, we do get that. And I think we get that really interestingly. I thought it was very effective. And one of my favorite things, too, I think possibly the best use of CGI I can remember is 1989 young Michael Douglas.
Yeah.
That looked totally realistic and legit to me. Like, you know, with Terminator Genesis, which I saw earlier a couple weeks ago, young Arnold. Remember how I said that the technology is really getting close now? We could actually do a young Arnold Terminator film, but you could still kind of see little bits of it where, you know, you knew it wasn't really him. I'm telling you, Matt, it looked like they filmed this 20 years ago.
Yeah, it definitely looks like Wall Street Michael Douglas. It was pretty amazing.
So I was impressed by that, but I know it's a small thing to spend some time on, but I just remember really being blown away by it. I liked Evangeline Lilly as Hope, the daughter. I like Corey Stoll. He was in House of Cards season 1. He's leading what I thought was ultimately a disappointing The Strain season 1. I haven't caught up with season 2 quite yet. It just started. He was in the Law and Order Los Angeles as well. I like Corey Stoll, and I really enjoyed him as Darren Cross as Yellow Jacket in this film. And let me state again too, possibly one of my favorite designs in all of the Marvel films for a villain is that Yellow Jacket suit. I think it looks fantastic.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with you. I think this movie, it has some kind of tonally dead points where it's kind of drags it a little, doesn't always hit, but when it does hit, when the funny does hit, there were parts of this that I really, really enjoyed. I loved Michael Pena's character, him recounting all of those things, and that seems like something straight out of Edgar Wright. That seems like something that it fits his style, and I love those couple scenes where he did that. And honestly, I was really impressed with the action too. I liked the kind of effect of him shrinking down and the whole heist scene, film aspect of it. I thought all of that was very, very effective. I mean, I think some of the, it kind of drags with some of the development of Ant-Man and training montages and stuff like that, but that's to be expected. And I thought as a whole it was a really, really effective movie. I thought it was not the best. It didn't blow me away. And if this had come out, before Guardians of the Galaxy and Winter Soldier, I would probably say this is probably one of the best films that they had ever done.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I think I just feel like the smaller stakes, if you will, how it's not as, I don't know, just not as epic, it's not as big as the other films in Marvel Phase 2 have been. And I'm wondering too, maybe is this the future? Maybe, I mean, what would you think? Do you like this overarching plan? Basically everything's kind of leading towards the Infinity War. Yeah. Or do you think maybe should Marvel dedicate more of its time to just dealing in this kind of more local fare, like maybe just like with Daredevil on Netflix, which started really strong, kind of petered out, but still has a smaller, more local feel to it?
Yeah, I think you'll see more of that, especially when you get to the characters who are more who are less well known, where people don't really know a lot about them. Like I think Black Panther, even though Captain Marvel's is pretty cosmic, and so is Doctor Strange. I think you're going to see kind of more smaller, more self-contained films that kind of nod to the rest of the MCU, and I think they're going to reserve kind of like the big overarching events for kind of your established things, your Thor, your Captain America, your Guardians of the Galaxy. I think that's where you're going to see the kind of big galaxy-spanning stuff.
Yeah, I think another strength of the film too is it's not really filled with angst at all. You know, there's not a lot of inner turmoil. The film just it's kind of fun. I think it moves pretty briskly. I agree with you. Sometimes maybe we could cut a minute here, a minute there, but overall, I thought it was just a really enjoyable film. It's the most fun I've had in a Marvel movie since Guardians of the Galaxy. And yeah, of course, that just leaves Avengers, right? So
yeah, I know that was all of a year ago, Chris.
But still, I think it's an interesting. I'm not sure if it means anything or what it says. The fact that this was a better film, at least more enjoyable than Avengers: Age of Ultron, which was one of my more anticipated films of the year, and I would watch this 2 or 3 times again before I'd watch Age of Ultron.
I agree. And it makes me, I'm kind of curious, the sheer amount of characters, and I think one of the big problems with Age of Ultron was just the sheer amount of stuff they tried to shove into that movie, and it makes me a little concerned about the Civil War that's coming up, because, I mean, literally everybody in the sun is showing up at least for like 5 minutes somewhere in that film.
Yeah, you feel like that thing's going to have to be like 4 hours long, right? Like that should be a 2-parter alone.
Right. I agree. So it'll be really interesting to see if they can pull it off. I think it's probably going to... I'm hoping it's not going to be overstuffed, but we'll see.
I don't know. It would be interesting if they, like you said, if they can pull that one off. I hope that Ant-Man has a nice role in it. I'm excited to see Spider-Man in it. And I got to admit, I feel... Not that I felt bad about it before, but I do feel a little more... I feel a little better about now that, that Spider-Man coming into the greater Marvel Universe. That I don't have to worry so much about the big cosmic kind of whole thing. I don't know if it's this commitment to trilogies that's part of the issue too, right? Where you have to come up with this massive overarching arc. You can't just have a nice fun film and then move on to the next one.
Right.
I don't know. Maybe we'll see.
Yeah. Well, I think we're going to get that with Spider-Man, so we'll see.
So I would have to say too, if I were to give this a grade, like a letter grade, I'm going B+ easy. I think is where I'd lock in Ant-Man. What about you?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was saying off the top of my head. B+ for sure.
Nice. All right, so I guess we're both agreeing. Really, if you get a chance to see Ant-Man, you should go see it. I did not go see it in IMAX in 3D. I don't honestly, from what I've read and from what I saw, I don't think there's a reason to do it. I don't think you should see this in IMAX or 3D. It's a regular screening. I think you'll be fine. You'll still get enough out of it. And from what I understand, the 3D stuff that they have in this is not really even worth checking out. So you can save yourself $5 too that way. But definitely see it in the theater. I think it's just a lot of fun. And it's Paul Rudd. I mean, come on, Paul. I don't think the guy never disappoints. Whatever he's in, I always just seem to enjoy him. And I think he nails it. I think he really nailed it. It never feels, it never has that suffocating I have to do the right thing and become a hero type thing. Everything kind of feels like a natural progression. Nothing ever seemed forced. It just all seemed to flow and make sense to me, and I just enjoyed it. So there you go. All right, you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay.
I can't say it any better than you have. I mean, obviously, I definitely think you should go check it out.
Fantastic.
And I think that's really the last movie that I'm really stoked about for the rest of the year until Star Wars comes out.
I was going to say that's not true, but I was going to say Star Wars. Not James Bond. Well, you're not the biggest James Bond fan, though.
No, I'm not nowhere near as big a James Bond as you are.
Well, few people are, I think. Which I want to talk about that maybe after the Blu-ray DVD picks, because the new Spectre trailer was released.
Yep.
So we can talk about that a little bit. All right. So if you've had a chance to see Ant-Man, we'd love to hear your thoughts. Shoot us an email at feedback@thefirstrun.com. Where do you rank it in phase 2? Heck, where do you rank it in the whole series? I don't know about that. Let's see, Max. I would go. I haven't gone through the whole thing. So what do we think is number 1? Is Iron Man? I'm inclined to think Guardians of the Galaxy for me is number 1 at this point.
Yeah, I think Guardians of the Galaxy is number 1. I think the first Iron Man is number 2. I think Winter Soldier's 3. First Avengers is 4. I would put this at like 5. I'd put this probably in the top third.
Yeah, I think I'm on board with that. Man, I do not like those Thor movies. I don't know what it is.
Second one was better.
It was, but what's my favorite? Is it I can't remember whose line it is. Somebody can
Isn't it Adam Carolla? Isn't that your boy?
It might be. It's like praising syphilis for not being AIDS.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, it's I don't know. All right, better than the Incredible Hulk. Definitely better. I think it was better than the first Captain America movie.
Yeah,
as well.
Definitely.
So yeah, I'm with you. I think I'd lock it around 5th, 6th place. Interesting. All right. Moving on. So we have the Blu-ray DVD picks. Matt, there's really nothing coming out this week. We talk about excising this segment. It doesn't really matter either way this week. This is July 28th. This film won the Australian Picture of the Year, directed by Russell Crowe. It's called The Water Diviner. And it's in 1919, Joshua Connor, who's a farmer, Russell Crowe, goes in search of his 3 missing sons, last known to have fought against the Turks in the bloody Battle of Gallipoli. Arriving in Istanbul, he's thrust into a vastly different world where he encounters others who have suffered their own losses in the conflict. It stars also Olga Kurylenko, but here's my big problem. It's supposed to be really good. Jay Courtney's in it.
Oh, automatic deal breaker for you, huh?
Pretty much. Maybe in his native Australian, he makes more sense and I like him more. Because Australian is a very different language. I hope it comes with subtitles. Justice League Gods and Monsters, the latest animated film from them, is being released. And from what I understand, this is an all original idea, right? This isn't an adaptation of an existing storyline.
Okay.
Includes some special features. The New Gods encore presentation of the 2010 documentary about Jack Kirby's New Gods is in this as well. So I'm interested in maybe checking that out. You know what? I never buy any of these. I've bought like 2 of them. One is, like I said last week, The Dark Knight Returns, which I've only watched the first half, and then Batman Year One. I think are like the only 2 I've ever bought. Mystery Science Theater Set 33 is being released, which includes Daddy-O, Earth vs. Spider, Teenage Crime Wave, and Agent for Harm. That's a pretty good pack. I'll probably be picking that one up once it hits like 30-something bucks. New to Blu-ray, Ghost Town from 1988. A modern-day deputy tracks an abducted girl to a ghost town and the spirits of the past who took her. It's one of these late 80s, just kind of crappy 80s horror films. Here's one thing, though. Are you a Steelbook guy?
No. I don't really buy into all that collectible stuff anymore.
Yeah, me neither. But this one's got me thinking. Okay. Mondo, who I'm a huge fan of. If you're not familiar with Mondo, go to mondotees.com. They're an offshoot of Alamo Draft House, and what they do is for a lot of their special presentations, they design special, unique posters. They use lots of great artists, guys like Jock and I think Guy Davis, and I mean, just there's the people that work for them are all I think top flight illustrators. So Target has some Mondo exclusive steelbook covers. Flash Gordon, which looks fantastic. Cherry 2000, like whatever. Shaun of the Dead one is pretty good, but my absolute favorite is Jock's cover for The Thing, the John Carpenter original film. Okay. They look really nice. If they're cheap enough, I might pull the trigger. Same thing too. I think Best Buy is getting them in November. I think in time for Spectre. Okay. They're getting steel books of all the James Bond films. Well, not all of them. I think they're only doing 5 or 6 to start, but they're doing the cover. The covers are going to reflect the opening credits. Okay. So, Maurice Binder's, or is it Binder's, opening credit sequences were very famous, and some of the later ones as well were still good. So the covers are going to reflect that. And the You Only Live Twice one looks really awesome. So I don't know. I may even, if they were cheap enough, I might get one of those, but I still doubt it. Your straight to DVD pick of the week, Matt. I went with Hollywood Road Trip. I love this part. All right, so I just love how it ends. Chaz, a vintage magazine collector, decides to go on a road trip with his friends to Hollywood after discovering a plot to find and hurt its longtime founder and CEO, which I'm assuming is Jimmy Hollywood. With everything at stake, he's forced to choose between his magazine collection, his best friends, his dream girl, or, I love this is his final option. So do I save my magazine collection? Do I hang out with my best friends? Do I hang out with my dream girl? Or do I save an innocent man's life? Which one am I going to go?
What kind of magazines are they?
I don't know. I'm assuming something inappropriate. Or maybe just a whole stack of boys' lives. So that's your Hollywood road trip. That's your straight to DVD pick of the week. Matt, I watched for a streaming pick too. I'm going to tell you what I watched again the other day. Okay. Running Man.
Oh, nice. I like the Running Man.
As did I. It really, it's got that, I love I don't know, I just had that nostalgia for the 80s cheesy action films. And I think Running Man is right up there for me with that. I thought about checking out Total Recall again too, but I don't know. I think Running Man's even more low-budget 80s cheesy.
Oh, it definitely is. Those professional wrestlers running around in spandex in their crazy costumes, those things are hilarious.
I love, what's his name, Dynamo, the electricity guy.
Yeah,
just a walking light bright set.
Yeah.
And then Jesse Ventura is in it as well, Captain Freedom. It's got a score by Harold Faltermeyer, which I really enjoyed as well. And one of my favorite things I watch, which really I thought was interesting and occurred to me, is there's a scene when Arnold has a chance to kill Dynamo. He's trapped in his car and he's got this big pipe, right? And he can shove it right through Dynamo's heart or whatever. And he says, "No, I'm not going to kill you. I'm not going to kill a helpless man." About 10 minutes later, he's fighting Fireball, who is basically incapacitated and his gas line is leaking, so he's covered in gasoline, and he's stuck in this area. So what does Arnold do? He lights a flare and throws it at him. So quick change of mind there, I think.
Well, he learned something from Dynamo. Didn't Dynamo come back and try and get him or something?
But later on, it's so Maria Conchita Alonso has somebody to fight in the climactic scene, so he doesn't encounter Dynamo again.
Oh, okay.
So within a span of like 5 to 10 minutes, he totally reverses that thing because Fireball is pretty much incapacitated, and he kills him.
There you go.
Whatever.
It's got Richard Dawson on it too, and that's nothing wrong with that.
Dawson's a lot of fun in that movie. Totally doing a takeoff of his Family Feud thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, you can watch Running Man right now. And why wouldn't you? So, did you get any news for us there?
Yeah, I got a couple things. So we're going to talk about the Spectre trailer. That was really the only film news, but I will bring up a couple of news bites from the small screen. So first, Michael Chiklis has joined the cast of Gotham as the new GCPD captain of that precinct. I stopped watching Gotham after about, I think, 3 or 4 episodes. How long did you stick with it?
I watched the whole thing.
Wow, that's amazing.
It's horrible.
So is this news about adding Michael Chiklis a little gravitas? Does that make you feel any better?
No, it's still gonna. I'll probably watch season 2 too. It's still gonna suck. I don't know why I watched it. Part of me now just watches it to just marvel in its badness, and I just can't understand how they can continuously mess this up. They need to make this Gotham Central. They need to make this basically like a Law and Order show, where it's a procedural, and stop shoehorning all these comic book guys into it just because we know, that guy's going to be the Riddler. That guy is going to, stop. You got to stop doing that because it's not working. And the timelines don't work because, like I say, every time I keep trying to determine how old everybody's going to be when Bruce Wayne grows up to be Batman. I would much rather watch a show of Bruce Wayne training all over the world. I think I think that would be a more interesting show, and you could do a different locale every season. How much fun would that be? I think that would be really interesting.
Yep.
But somehow this show, it's just the problem I hate the most is that it's just dumb. It's just a dumb show.
Acting is terrible. The ideas are just everything about it is just bad. I'm actually a little upset that you're still watching it because all you're doing is encouraging them.
That's true. Well, I have my palate cleanser, which is The Flash, which I adore. I love the conclusion of that season 1. I love the Jay Garrick reference, and they casted Jay Garrick, so I'm thinking they have to do alternate timelines in this, the multiverse, because there was no previous mention of Flashes before, so they're got to be going with the multiverse theory.
Yeah, they are, because they're casting one of the main villains for next season is Zoom. So we had the Reverse Flash, now we're gonna get Zoom. That's cool.
I would like to see that. And though I'll admit I'm a little hesitant about the what is it, the New Legends or the Legends of the Fall? What's it called?
Legends of Tomorrow.
I'm assuming that the original Black Canary is going to go into the Lazarus Pit. That's how she's coming back.
Yeah, she's the White Canary now.
Right, but I just don't know if that's enough. Those characters are enough to hook me in. Though if I'm watching Gotham, I could probably watch that.
You know what? They've made. I mean, granted, Arrow is nowhere near as good anymore as the Flash, but they've managed to pull off 2 for 2. They've got 2 more shows coming out next year. They got Legends of Tomorrow and Supergirl. I'm gonna end up watching both of them. I'm gonna give these guys the benefit of the doubt because they haven't steered me wrong yet.
I hope you're right. We'll see how that goes.
All right, so now before we talk about Spectre, now let's talk about the really important news here. This is the real deal news, okay? Spoiler alert. Stop listening now if you don't want to hear about if you haven't seen the end of Game of Thrones yet. But Watchers on the Wall and winteriscoming.net have been having Kit Harington hair watch, and Kit Harington has been spotted with all of his hair and a beard in Belfast, where they are filming season 6 right now. And he's been around longer than it would normally take, you would think, to just film a funeral scene like they did with Charles Dance. So I'm thinking this proves something that I've been very confident about all along. We're going to get Jon Snow back come season 6.
Now all right. So I have a few thoughts on this. I did just end up finishing season 5 about 2 weeks ago or so. And I had said weeks ago, I think one of the biggest flaws with Game of Thrones is that your supposed lead hero is one of the more boring characters in the show, which is Jon Snow for me,
right.
Kit Harington. So he dies at the end of at the season finale. And I understand that he's shown up and everything. I still, but the showrunners and people have said that he's dead. Now, I understand they've caught up, right, to the books. So there's no more source material for you to review and say, well, I know he's alive because he's in this next book.
Right.
So, and I don't know if they're going to wait for George R.R. Martin or if they're just going to go forward at this point and do whatever the heck they want, or with his input. I don't know what the plan is.
Yeah.
I'm not convinced, Matt. I still think maybe he's going to play. It's just going to be him doing flashbacks, or maybe he's in some kind of dream sequence or some kind of spiritual thing. Because I don't see how he survives. The showrunner says no, he's dead.
Right. I think it's two things. One, I think that's semantics. I think they're going to pull, some kind of, if you really listen to what we said that Jon Snow's dead and what came back is not Jon Snow. And I think, two, this is some J.J. Abrams con level crap. They're just lying because they're trying to keep the secret. I don't think one of the central mysteries of the books and the show, and even how these guys got their job, was who are Jon Snow's parents. And I don't think that either of these guys are bad enough writers to basically have one of the big mysteries say, oh, it doesn't matter now because the dude's dead. Because what would it matter if he's dead at that point?
I thought he was Sean Bean's kid.
That's the theory, but that's what they want you to think. But the theory is that he's actually not Ned Stark's bastard. He is the son of Ned's sister Lyanna and Dany's older brother Rhaegar, who was the prince that Robert killed in battle during the war, and that's why he's important. That basically Ned's sister asked Ned to hide him because she knew that Robert would kill him because he's a Targaryen.
I feel like you just made a bunch of those words up. Here's my problem with Game of Thrones is I feel like you have to watch it all over again because I don't know who the houses are. I don't know.
Yeah. How do you not know who the houses are? Okay.
I know the guy with the Kingslayer guy and his girlfriend / sister, who the Lannisters, right? They're Lannisters.
Yes.
Okay.
They're Lannisters. Good job. You get a Bronze Star.
And then I know Emilia Clarke, and she's a
Targaryen. She's
Targaryen.
Targaryen.
No idea. Okay. Oh wait, so Snow's Targaryen too?
That's the fan theory. Is that
So
basically
the two of them come together and rule the lands together with the dragons?
That's also part of the thought, is that he's basically, and the other thought is that, Melisandre is going to raise him from the dead, and that he's going to end up being the guy that she thought Stannis was.
So, and that's the Red Witch that gets naked with everybody.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. I just keep waiting for Dinklage to show up. That's pretty much.
That's the only reason you're watching is Dinklage.
Dinklage and dragons. That's pretty much what I'm waiting for.
Well, you get ice zombies now too, so that's a plus.
That's true.
Yeah.
What if Snow comes back as an ice zombie?
Well, that could happen, but he's coming back in some shape or form. So.
All right.
Well, I'm a little upset. You're not as much of a Game of Thrones nerd as I am, so
it's just
we'll move on to something that's much more relevant as James Bond.
The problem is for me, it's so dense.
Yeah.
I feel like I think I have HBO now. Maybe I can start watching it all over again. I guess I don't know. I don't know what it is. It's just so much to maintain in my head at any given moment, and I have to dedicate. I have to dedicate so much time to making my 40th David Bowie playlist, and figuring out who's going to be James Bond after Daniel Craig.
Right.
It's Tom Hardy, but I just feel I have a lot to figure out. So. And worrying about Zack Snyder just flushing the whole DC cinematic universe down the toilet.
Well, I guess that is a lot to worry about, but I think you should make some room in that brain of yours. Clear out some space. All right, so I'm going to kick it over to you. So, new Spectre trailer, new James Bond trailer. as the resident James Bond nerd, in fact, one of the only ones I know in real life, what do you think?
So I think we can finally stop with the whole subterfuge that Christoph Waltz is not Blofeld. He's saying it's Franz Oberhauser is his character name. And he has some connection to James Bond, but he's not the main bad guy. He's clearly in this new trailer, Blofeld. And I know, what's his name? The guy who played Moriarty in the new Sherlock series is supposed to be the stealth main bad guy. But you know what? I'm not buying it. I think Waltz is Spectre. He's got the presence for it. I mean, is Blofeld. He's got the presence for it. I'm curious what the connection is. I'm really nervous is that he's his brother. I feel like...
with the burnt picture and everything. And
exactly. You know, like the whole thing was like Thomas Wayne or like Bruce Wayne's brother, you know, Hush. That whole thing, like, oh, you never knew this whole time that you got a I just... No, I understand that I'm supposed to... We're only 3 films into this James Bond. But still, I think if Blofeld is his brother, or maybe what's his name is actually Blofeld, and it's all just a clever... I don't know. I'm at one time very excited because we got to see cool kick-ass flames shoot out the back of the car. So we're getting the James Bond car back. Hopefully it doesn't turn invisible.
Okay.
But I'm excited for that. We're going all in on the gadgets, it looks like this time, which is fine with me. You know, I don't have a problem with the gadgets. I don't have a problem with going back. It's the tone. You know, I don't want Man with a Golden Gun James Bond. Or what's the one? Is that the one where he does the car flip? And they have the slide whistle as the car does the turn?
You're asking the wrong person, man. I see...
There's a scene in Man with a Golden Gun where James Bond's driving this car, and it's one of those things where the car has to go up a ramp, and as it goes up the ramp curves, so that the car kind of does twirls and lands on the ramp on the other side of the river. But when that happens, there's a slide whistle sound effect. I am not making this up. If you can probably YouTube it. It is the low watermark of all the James Bond films, and I'm including stuff from View to a Kill.
Wow.
So as long as that stuff never comes back, I'll be fine.
I don't think it will. Is Craig's last picture his 4th one?
No, he's signed on for 5.
Oh, he's signed on for 5. Okay.
They'll probably see. I think they could squeeze a 6th one out of him too.
Yeah.
If it comes together. If they hold on to Sam Mendes because he really likes working with Mendes. Okay. So if we can squeeze another, but that's 2 films down the road, so who knows?
Right. Hey, man, got to make them mortgage payments, you know.
And I still want to see Chiwetel Ejiofor as a villain. I'm dying to see that. But yeah, I don't know. It looks. I mean, there's some things in it that make me look really excited about it, and there are other things that make me nervous. As I said, chiefly that Oberhauser is his brother, even if he's his half brother or if he's an adopted brother. I'm going to roll my eyes. So hopefully there's enough in here to make me not be upset. Like hopefully it's as gorgeous as the last one. I'm telling you, Skyfall is the best looking Bond film of all time. Mm-hmm. The way that thing was shot, it's a gorgeous film. So I don't know. I am cautiously optimistic.
I'm crossing my fingers for you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. All right. So that's what I got for news. Man, we talked a long time about that stuff.
Well, I could talk about James Bond stuff all day. I should do a whole different show with that and have even fewer people listen. What's -0?
YouTube contacts you and tells you that you owe them money for even posting it up there.
Okay, well, I should be getting the email shortly. Look, I'm going to do a solo show when I talk about Mr. Holmes, and I'm going to tell you too what I think the top 10 films of the year are so far, because I just don't. I know Dave is still in the Himalayas trying to rescue stranded cats, and you haven't had a chance to go to the theater. So since I've seen a ton of stuff, I'll probably just be doing that.
Okay.
So let's transition though over to what we think are the 5 comic book characters, and I want to stress comic book characters. I don't want to just go with superheroes.
Right.
Comic book characters, though I think I did, that should never get their own film.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad you made that clarification, because when you sent over what you wanted to do for the this segment, you said heroes, and I really thought about it, and I was like, you and I could probably sit here for 4 hours straight and just come up with like the ridiculous superheroes that they've come up with throughout the history of comics that just don't deserve any kind of representation on any filmic medium, and nobody should ever think about them ever again, because comics are ridiculous and they've got some real winners in their depths. So what I did is I picked some that I didn't want to see on film because they're so bad, and other ones because I just don't think a film can do it justice, and I enjoyed it so much as a comic.
Well, that's interesting. I didn't even think about it that way. My whole thing was just horrible comic book characters.
Okay.
So I like that. It's interesting to see what you're going to come up with. So why don't you start us off then? What's your number 5?
All right, so my number 5. So back in the 90s, there was this shift to, thanks to The Dark Knight Returns, to grim and gritty characters. Everybody was extreme and dark. And I really had a tough time trying to figure out which one I wanted to pick for this, but I decided to go with Night Thrasher. Now, if you don't know who Night Thrasher is, he is a Marvel Batman ripoff. Basically, had his parents killed in front of him when he was a kid. He's super wealthy. He trains, his body to become the peak of perfection. He's a crazy good detective, and he goes around at night and kicks the shit out of bad guys. Is basically what he does.
Well, what's his what's his equipment, Matt? Why don't you share with us his equipment?
Yeah, so his equipment is he's basically wearing sparring gear and a football helmet, and he runs around with 2 nightsticks and a skateboard, and that's what he does. He kicked the crap out of the Punisher. He's supposed to be this really incredible fighter, but he is literally one of the epitomes of horrible 90s cliche characters, and a complete terrible Batman ripoff to boot.
Yeah, he is ridiculous. He's absolutely horrible. It's the skateboard is what I was shooting at, really. It's the fact that he fights crime on a skateboard is just absolutely one of the most ridiculous things ever. He's up there with, what was his name? Speed Racer? Not Speed Racer. Slide. What was his name? He's a Spider-Man, initially a villain, then a good guy, had a rocket-powered skateboard.
Oh, yeah. I know who you're talking about, but I don't even remember what the hell that guy was called. Man, comic books. All right, what do you got? What's number 5 for
My
you?
number 5 is another member of the New Warriors, and that's Speedball.
Oh, nice. So tell me about Speedball.
Yeah, so introduced, I think, in a Marvel annual with Spider-Man and Daredevil. Speedball has the ability, basically, to just bounce off things.
Very nice.
His body generates some kind of kinetic energy, and he becomes invulnerable when he starts jumping around. So he just bounces around into things, and he's totally fine. I guess eventually he finds a way to harness some of that kinetic energy. I don't buy it. But the whole thing is that he just runs around and then bounces into things. That's his shtick. And it's absolutely ridiculous. It's not that saying being able to fly is just as ridiculous. I get that. And there's like a weird level, right? You're talking about all the stuff Superman can do is ridiculous. But Speedball is ridiculous too, but on a different level.
Yeah.
And it's funny to kind of argue that, to be as a comic book, or just to be a geek, to say, well, that's just stupid, as opposed to a guy having heat vision.
But I think really what sells it for Speedball is he's got that blue and orange with like leopard spots and like his hair sticking out at the top. He just absolutely looks ridiculous.
He does. I think that's what I like so much about him. Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna have that dumb a power and you're gonna have that bad a costume and not care, I have to respect you.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit.
Even though he's the 5th worst.
That's it. So what do you got? What's for?
All right. So one of the other trends, very regrettable trends of the 90s, was this whole kind of I don't want to put this. I would say bad girls that have very ridiculous proportions running around in very skimpy suits. And one of the ones that was inexplicably popular for a very long time, well, actually very explicitly if you really want to think about it, is Lady Death. Lady Death is basically like the goddess of death, and she runs around and fights Satan, and she kills demons, so she's kind of good, but she's kind of bad at the same time. But really what her whole thing was that she was completely like pale white, like ghost white, and had these gigantic breasts and basically this tiny little bathing suit lingerie outfit that she just ran around in and struck, ridiculous poses in. There were lots of characters like this in the 90s, but I think she was the epitome of the completely insane, and also I have no idea why she was so popular.
Yeah, I don't know what it is either. I think it was just it was the fact that she was basically naked.
Yeah, I think so.
That's all it was.
It. Yeah.
It is absolutely ridiculous. And you want to talk? Listen, comic books have been bad when it comes to the portrayal of women. I mean, just Power Girl alone is just patently ridiculous.
Yeah.
But Lady Death is just so so bad. And I never read any of it. I think for me it was the fact that she had no irises. I just couldn't get behind that. That's really what it was.
That's really what did it for you.
That's all it was.
And can you imagine like the outcry? Like what would happen if somebody tried to make that movie today? Like and tried to keep it true to the comic at all? Like people would lose their minds. I Gawker Network would completely collapse under the amount of vitriolic comics that would go out there.
I don't know. Something's got to be programmed on Spike.
They did make a Witchblade show that was wasn't her basically naked. So I guess that's something. That's
right. They did.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I never got into the whole thing with Death. Yeah, I don't know. The whole thing is it's ridiculous. If I remember correctly, her bra was bones, right? It was like skeleton.
It was basically two skeletal hands holding her boobs.
That's right. God.
I mean, it just epitomizes like all of like the negative stereotype about comic fans. Like, yeah, but there it is. You guys made this popular 20 years ago, 30 years ago.
That's right. Just put the book down and talk to a girl. You're much better off that way. My number 4 are the New Guardians. Are you familiar with the New Guardians?
They ring a bell, but why don't you explain them to me?
All right. So here's this. It's the late 80s. DC Comics has this great idea to reintroduce these characters called the Manhunters. If you're not familiar with the Manhunters, they were the protectors, the cops of the universe before the Green Lanterns. They're robots that the Owens, created to patrol the galaxy to keep, justice and order. But the problem is the Manhunters go rogue. They do the same thing that all robots do, and they think things are better off if all the other people are dead and they're in charge of everything. So what they do is they infiltrate everybody. So like the Green Lantern's best friend, like all these comic book heroes and all these kind of second and third tier characters, a lot of them turn out to be Manhunters in disguise the whole time. Great stuff, lots of reveals, shocking moments. And the whole thing leads to the creation of this new team with a great, what's the word? Just intentions behind it. They're international heroes, right? They're from all different countries. They're not just white people. There's like an African, there's an Asian, there's an Indian guy. I mean, it's all over the place. But the problem is they're really, really boring. Their powers are really bad. The only guy that has any real history is the Floronic Man, which is kind of a Swamp Thing villain who becomes a good guy. One is a magician that's gay and that has AIDS, and they kind of fumble that. I know they're trying to make some kind of social commentary at this point, but they make him very effeminate as well, and there's that whole kind of struggle with that. There's Betty Clawman, an Australian woman who's a disembodied cosmic force. A lot of them they're poorly thought out, and they're just really bad. And the problem is too, it's just dull. It's as dull as the day is long. You have this great concept, and you just totally fail on the execution. And the resulting super team that comes out of it is just really dull and boring and bad. Mm-hmm. And I never want to see any of these characters ever again. I think some of them still pop around in the DC universe once in a while, but it's really bad. So I just remember being really let down by Millennium. It was one of the first big crossover series I got into as a kid. And by the end, I was like, what is this shit? So I'm clearly still mad about it.
Clearly.
Oh, there's one guy too. There's a one character named Snowflame who's a super villain. He gains his powers because he uses cocaine. I get what you're saying, DC. I can get superpowers if I use cocaine. I better
Yeah.
not do that. So, Matt, what about you? What's your 3?
All right, so my number 3 is kind of it straddles that line of what I'm trying to do here. The early part of it is really ridiculous, but they had a kind of a reboot series a few years ago that I thought I really, really enjoyed, and I think it'd be really hard to translate to film. So this is actually called Dial H for Hero. Are you familiar with Dial H for Hero, Chris?
I am.
All right, for those people who aren't, which is probably 98% of the listening public, so Dial H for Hero is this young man. He finds a dial that looks like a phone dial, and if he dials in HER0 or O, it will basically give him random superpowers, and he goes out and fights crime, with whatever it dials up, and every time he dials it, it comes up with a new superpower, or it makes him a new hero. Kind of, cheesy, ridiculous kind of stuff from, the 60s and 70s, and, it was just kind of a gimmick, and it was kind of dumb, and the normal stories, and I think, obviously I don't think anybody would be very interested in it. But in 2012, during one of, DC's innumerable reboots that they can't seem to keep themselves from doing, China Miéville, who is a kind of weird fiction writer, he took over the property and wrote the series, changed it to Dial H, and basically came up with this whole mythology of there's all these dials that come from another dimension, and basically what you're doing is when you dial the dials, you're pulling a hero and their powers from like an alternate dimension, from a multiverse, and what is coming is coming through is what you're getting, and the heroes that he comes up with are just completely whacked out and kind of messed up and very strange heroes, which I really enjoyed. So I think it would be really, really difficult to adapt to the screen. But I think the comic itself is excellent, at least the 2012 series, for as long as it lasted of a year and a half.
Yeah, it was an interest. That would be interesting. There was a fun run in the late mid 90s of some stuff. Like Grant Morrison had a series called Aztec, which is a character he ended up working into the JLA, which I really liked a lot. There was another one too called not Tempo. He was based on a villain, and he was a time traveler. And what he would do is he kind of pop in and out of time and steal things, but he was kind of a reluctant superhero. I really like that one a lot. And another good one too. Resurrection Man was pretty good, which is kind of similar, right? He's the guy that died, and every time he came back to life. He had a different superpower.
Yeah.
So yeah, there was some interesting stuff that never seemed to catch on. There's a Challenges of the Unknown reboot that I liked a lot, with art by John Paul De Leon. I thought that was really good. The relaunch of The Human Target was really fun with Cliff Chang. That didn't really last very long. So yeah, there's a lot of interesting stuff out there. There was an interesting time back then. There's a lot of crap. Your Cable, your Rob Liefeld series stuff, but there was a lot of experimentation out there too. That was pretty good. All right, my number 3. I can't decide, Matt. I have 2, so you tell me which one you'd rather not see. They're both Legion of Superhero heroes.
Okay.
I'm leaning towards my first one, which is Stone Boy, or Matter Eater Lad. Are you familiar with Stone Boy or Matter Eater Lad?
Yes, I'm familiar with both of them, but in fact, they were going to be in my honorable mentions. So why don't you explain? I know who I would go with.
Yeah, so Stone Boy basically just turns himself to stone. I guess he becomes petrified. So his whole thing is he would just turn to stone and then stand there. So you could use him as a projectile. That was pretty much his only ability. You would throw him at stuff. That's what he did. I guess kind of like Speedball. Except he didn't, excrete any kinetic energy. No, yeah. Once he hit someplace, he was done. And then Matter Eater Lad had the superpower to be able to eat anything. I mean, anything. That was his superpower. And a lot of fans, if you look him up, I think on Wikipedia, there's a picture of him just eating a fence. I can see now. I'm leaning towards Stone Boy because Matter Eater Lad you could do something with, but he's a one-trick pony. Right. He's gonna eat a bomb or a nuclear or something, whatever the case may be. Right. So I'm gonna go with Stone Boy as being the most just pointless superhero. There's no reason to see a film with Stone Boy.
Yeah, I would go with Stone Boy as well. I mean, basically he turns into a statue and can't move. So once he gets thrown as a projectile, he has to wait for somebody to come and pick him back up for even to be even useful again. So Stone Boy, definitely.
All right. Sorry, Stoneboy.
Yeah, sorry, Sunboy. All right, so my number 2 is actually one of my favorite series of all time. It's one of my favorite series of all time.
That you can't remember?
No, my wife came in for a second and gave me a look, so it distracted me. Is Bone. Are you familiar with Jeff Smith's Bone?
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So basically what it is, it's a story of 3 cousins who are basically, for lack of a better term, they're almost kind of like Smurfs. They're like white Smurfs. They get chased out of Boneville, and they live in a valley full of humans, and a valley that has a war going on between the humans, these creatures called the rat creatures, the dragons, and a mysterious force called the Lord of Locusts. It kind of starts off as a very funny, kind of kid-friendly tale, and it kind of morphs into this kind of grand fantasy epic thing, where it's got a big story. It's got a lot of mythology to it. I really enjoyed it. It's something that obviously kids can read, but it also has a lot of depth for adults. I just don't think that if they ever tried to make it a movie, you would ever have the amount of scope that you would need, and I would just live in fear of how would you even have the bones be there convincingly, because they basically look like Smurfs, essentially, like little bulbous anthropomorphic white guys. So I think you can kind of get past that in the comic book form, but if you try to make a film of it, it would just be a disaster.
Interesting. I never read Bone. I knew of it, but I never read any of it. So.
Oh, it's really good.
Interesting. Well, that's not as good as my number 2.
I'm sure it's not.
Which is US1. Are you familiar with US1?
Okay, I'm not familiar.
Yeah, I'm surprised NFL Pro didn't make my list, but US1 is Marvel's attempt to glom on to the whole trucking craze from the mid-'80s, the late '80s, when everybody wanted to be an 18-wheeler driver. And US1, US1 was cool because what happened is he had this metal plate in his head, and he could hear and communicate via CB radio with the plate in his head.
That was a superpower?
That was it. And he was long hauling stuff and getting into scraps and living the high life on the road. Alone. Free, man. It's absolutely ridiculous. Just Google US1 and look at the cover. It's sublime and beautiful in its stupidity. I don't know why it didn't take off. I'm still waiting. I don't know. If there was a US1 movie, I might watch that.
Yeah?
No, I wouldn't. So go ahead. What do you got?
All right, so my number 1 is one that they're actually making a movie of, and I'm very upset about. But it's The Sandman by Neil Gaiman. I think it's one of my favorite stories in any medium. I absolutely love it, and it's very dark. It's very adult. It has a very deep mythology to it. It tells an incredible story with a very definite beginning, middle, and end. But again, in the same vein as Bone, I don't think you're going to get the visuals in a single film. You're not going to be able to let the story breathe. And if they're going to try unless they want to make the 12 volumes that this thing is made out of into 12 different films, it's just not going to work. And you're just going to try and shove too many pieces and lose too much of it when you put it on the screen. Our boy Joseph Gordon-Levitt is trying to adapt it right now, but some of what he's talked about it just sounds like it's going to be a disaster, and I'm very upset about it because it's one of my favorite properties. I really feel it should have been like a TV show.
Yeah, I think that would have been better, like they're doing with Preacher. I think that's going to be great.
Yeah.
I never got into Sandman. I don't know what it is. I know it's this big, thing with all the geeks and all the, the losers. All love him. All the emos listening to The Cure while you read the latest issue of Sandman. Right.
So here's the guy mocking people who listen to The Cure, who listens to David Bowie in his 40 playlist. Right.
How dare you?
You definitely need to read it, though. You're gonna have to give in your geek cred if you don't read it.
No, I know. So having Jiggle involved does not make you feel better about it?
Not really. I just don't.
He's artsy.
He is artsy, but when he was talking about the way he was describing it, about how how they're condensing it, and how they're got these action scenes, and how it's going to be an exciting movie, it's like, man, how are you, like, the best parts of that series that are like that are not going to make any sense without any backstory.
Interesting. All right. Well, it's too bad they don't give it the Hobbit treatment. They can do like the first issue and make it 3 movies worth.
There you go.
My number one is just, I'm not even sure where to begin with my number one. I was a big fan when I was a kid of the West Coast Avengers. I think it's because I liked Hawkeye. I had a thing for archery. I never pursued it. I don't know. And it had one of the worst artists in the history, I think, of comics, Al Milgrom, who started as an inker, but drew a lot of the West Coast Avengers, the first bunch of issues. And it's really bad. But I just stuck with it because I liked Hawkeye. And Iron Man, Wonder Man was on that team. Tigra, it was a Mockingbird. It was a fun series. I like West Coast Avengers. Then John Byrne comes in and revitalizes the whole thing. John Byrne, fresh off of Superman, Man of Steel, right? When he retells the whole origin of Superman, does a damn good job of it, I think. He's the one that wasn't he the one that brought in the whole S is actually a symbol of where he's from?
Yeah,
it's not actually a Superman. It doesn't stand for Superman,
right?
So anyway, he introduces a super team into the West Coast Avengers called. Are you familiar, Matt? With
I know what you're gonna say.
The Great Lakes Avengers.
Oh yes.
These are the most D-list heroes you will ever see, and I get that was part of the whole thing that they were B-level heroes, but these guys are really bad. There's one guy, Mr. Immortal. His power is that he can't die. Or when he dies, he comes back to life. My favorite is Dinah, or it's Dina. Maybe Dina. I don't know. Dina Soar. She looks like a pterodactyl, basically, and she gets killed in the first issue, thankfully. Big Bertha, who's just a very large woman. Flat Man, who's just a ripoff, basically, of Mr. Fantastic, except he's always flat instead, and then he can get really, expands himself. And then Doorman, who's a teleporter. Well, teleportation's great, except when your only ability is to teleport into the next room next to you. That was the max of his distance. These guys, they even had their own series. They got like a limited, and I think they tried to relaunch them to make them hip again. But I'm telling you, the only way I'd want to see the Great Lakes Avengers ever again is if Scourge showed up and took them all out. Marvel did this. I don't know if you remember Scourge, Matt.
Yeah.
Scourge was a villain who showed up in Marvel Comics. His whole existence was to take out the D and C level villains in the Marvel Universe. So then people and the artists and the writers could kind of relaunch new versions of them instead. So they created this whole character, just wipe out all of these guys. There's one issue of Captain America where he took out like 20 of them in a bar. It was a super villain bar they all hung out at. And he dressed up as the bartender. And he took out a machine gun and just massacred them all right there. So maybe Scourge showed up.
There you go.
But that would be the only reason why I'd want to see the Great Lakes Avengers ever again.
But come on, the Great Lakes Avengers. There was the reassembled or disassembled storyline that was actually pretty funny. I mean, when they played up their kind of innate ridiculousness and played them as a joke, it was a pretty good little series.
I'll take your word for it.
There's a strong online push to bring the Great Lakes Avengers to the MCU, which I would love for them to do, actually.
Dear God. Let's hope not. So what do you got? Any honorable mentions?
Yeah, I got a few. Morbius, the living vampire, which is this guy like a reject from a Kiss concert. He's basically a living vampire, but I think they are going to make a movie out of this at some point. Darkhawk and Shadowhawk, which are just two Batman ripoffs. Well, Darkhawk's not, but just kind of goes with the 90s theme of everything has to either be dark or night or shadow or hawk to add into it. And literally anything Rob Liefeld ever created on his own is just absolutely just the worst. Although I do appreciate how some people have managed to take some of his characters and actually make something halfway decent out of them. Like
Deadpool's a Liefeld character, right? Or did Fabian Nicieza co-create him or something like that?
Yeah, Fabian Nicieza created him, but I'm talking like Planetary. Is it Planetary? No, Supreme. When Warren Ellis got a hold of it, he made some actually really, really good stuff. And Prophet, the new series of Prophet is actually not bad. Where it just kind of jettisons everything about the old Prophet and just kind of rewrites the whole thing new. So anything that guy touched, he's also maybe one of the worst artists I've ever seen.
Awesome. My only honorable mentions were Vibe, who I think is doing wonderful work in the Flash TV series without being Vibe.
Yeah.
And then Jubilee, who I understand is in X-Men Apocalypse, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But Jubilee, one of the most least consequential heroes in the history of the X-Men, right up there with Dazzler, and basically has the same powers. Which I don't. Why not just use Dazzler? I don't understand that. So, whatever. So those are the honorable mentions I had. I was getting
really
a headache, so I stopped looking.
That's really saying something, considering how many D-list characters have been in an X team somewhere along the way. But not many have been in the actual X-Men. That's true.
Mm-hmm. You know what would be cool to see? Mysterio. I'd like the big, but he has to have the fishbowl head.
Yeah, the crystal ball head.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
I would definitely like to see that going on.
Yeah. Maybe we'll get a Excalibur and get a Captain Britain, all that stuff. That'll be great.
I always liked Captain Britain. I thought he had a cool costume.
Yeah. Or Alpha Flight, the Canadian Avengers.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Man, there are so many bad characters.
Puck. Puck could get his own movie. Why not? Anyway, shoot us an email, feedback at the first run. What D-list comic character who should never get their own movie or even show up in a movie? Maybe in Infinity Gauntlet, we could see a bunch of them in the background, like on an asteroid, and then that asteroid gets blown up, and then we can all clap. Squirrel Girl.
That would be awesome if like Canada and Britain just like brought out Excalibur and Alpha Flight for their answer to the Avengers, and like Thanos kills them in like 2 seconds all at once.
That would be pretty good.
That would be good.
Black Knight, one of the Avengers for a while.
Yeah, that's right.
The Wizard. You already have the Fly. I mean, you already have Quicksilver. Why do you got to give us the Wizard? Well, Wizard was first, though, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was.
Like
but see, this is what I was saying. We could sit here and do this all day.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's just stop. All right. So next week we're up in the air. We may do Trainwreck. We may just do What We Do in the Dark. Is that the name of it? I always get the title.
What we do in the shadows.
In the shadows. I always say the dark. So either way, no matter what happens, I'll tell you at some point what I saw of Trainwreck, because I have seen it along with Mr. Holmes. We're going to avoid pixels like the plague. There are reviews out there, Matt, that say that basically Adam Sandler has to be stopped at this point.
Mm-hmm.
One review said it's basically one big middle finger to the audience, the film. I think it's at a robust 6% on Rotten Tomatoes right now, one of the worst films ever made. Nice. It's totally devoid of any life, and it sucks the soul out of you if you watch it.
Yeah, Dinklage is attached to it. That's the one thing I'm sad about it for.
That's the one thing that gave me a little hope.
Yeah.
But then I saw, a Sandler movie, and then I saw what's his name is in it. Paul Blart is in it too.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming Rob Schneider's in it. He's got his whole. Oh, it's up to 10%.
11%.
Ooh, somebody else must have liked it.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that's too bad. Well, you know what? I mean, it had to happen sooner or later, so I guess the movie-going public is finally correcting itself. So it was bound, and it really had to happen sooner or later.
We don't know that, Matt. We could we could talk next week, and Pixels could clear $80 million.
This is very true.
And if we do, I will put my head in an oven.
Well, since they don't have gas anymore, you might want to come up with something else.
Yeah. All right. Well, think of something else.
Yeah.
In the meantime, shoot us an email, feedback@thefirstrun.com. We're on YouTube. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. Just do a search for The First Run. You can check Matt out as well. He's every Saturday night. He's in downtown Hartford doing something. He doesn't like to talk about it. Just find him.
You know where to find me.
And you'll know what's up. So that's a big show for this week. We're going to take an extended break, and we'll see you all in a week.
Go to Mum's, kill Phil, grab Liz, go to the Winchester, have a nice cold pint, and wait for all this to blow over. How's that for a slice of fried gold?